it's important that as we think about how our appliances work, that we incorporate that health and wellness into it. So for instance, our 5-in-1 oven, you can roast veggies in it, you can cook salmon in it. Our brand new minimalist and statement collection wall ovens has hot air fries, so that healthier version of cooking that we have incorporated into our appliances. I'm gonna go ahead and kick it over to Nicholas, and he's gonna talk a little bit about what his firm all does.
So again, I'm Nicholas Moriarty of Nicholas Moriarty Interiors, based here in Chicago. We are exclusively a luxury residential interior design firm, focusing on mostly existing properties, full gut interior architecture projects and design projects. Sustainability and health and wellness are a huge part of what we do as a firm. We're very lucky that the vast majority of our clients are health conscious and are home cooks. We do a tremendous amount of kitchen design, which is why we've had such a long partnership with Monogram and working with them. And we really love that space, and we really love this time in history that we're having, as crazy as it is, because I think it is giving a lot of people the opportunity to pause and rethink their own lives and their own health and wellness goals. So today we're going to be talking about sustainability in the home. We're also going to be talking about nourishment in the home, fitness in the home, and then lastly we're going to be talking about comfort in the home. I keep wanting to say meditation. And so we're really trying to give everybody a broad scope of what health and wellness means within the context of your house. And we really hope you guys join us for the entire series. We think it's going to be fantastic, and we really hope you all find some useful knowledge. So I'll give it over to Claire now.
Hi everybody, I'm Claire Stazak with Center by Design. It's so nice to be here with you. This is my first, I've been on a lot of the other end of these webinar Zoom calls, so nice to see you all out there. So we are a luxury residential firm as well here in Chicago. We also work on a lot of kitchens, and I came into design from a background in yoga, and I really feel like the design process in general and architecture stressful for clients, and so we really have a holistic approach that we take at looking at the whole home, also the stress levels of our clients, and working with specific sustainability in mind in terms of depending on the client's level of interest and desire in making their home a green home. That's something that we try to help them make those correct decisions. And today I want to, so we're really happy to be a part of this series. Also, just to clarify, depending on the COVID situation, we're hoping some of these may end up being able to be in-person sessions where we might do some of this yoga, exercise, nutrition information all together. If not, we're going to make them virtual, but we'll find a way to kind of prevail one way or the other. And I want to introduce you today to Nathan Kipnis, who is going to give us this awesome talk on sustainability. So I first came across Nathan through Powerhouse Smart, which is a networking group that I'm in. And Nathan started a really cool kind of consortium of businesses called Next House Alliance. And it is a premier design build concept, all the way from concept to full build of a net zero, sustainable, resilient, healthy home. So that's how I first kind of came in contact with Nate. And then Nathan, just to give you a little more background on him, he is a fellow of the AIA and a lead accredited professional. He is the principal of Kipnis Architecture and Planning with offices in Evanston and Boulder, Colorado. And in 2019, Mr. Kipnis was awarded the prestigious 2019 Emerald Award from the Illinois Green Alliance. He's got a host of other wonderful things as well, including he was design and technology consultant for the 2017 House by Northwestern Solar Decathlon entry, and his firm was named one of the top 25 environmental architectural practices in the U.S. All pretty wonderful, big deal, but what Nathan's going to be telling us about today is something called the Well Building Standard, and we've based this series on different parts of the Well Building Standard, and so we hope you find the information really informative, and take it away, Nate.
All right, well, let's see. Let's get
one quick thing I'll actually say before Nate gets started. If you guys have any questions, please utilize the chat feature on the bottom. If you scroll to the bottom of your screen, a taskbar will pop up. Please utilize that. We'd love to hear from you and hear what questions you have for Nate when it relates to sustainability.
Am I up there yet or not yet?
Don't see the slide yet.
Okay, hold on 1 second. All right, how's that?
There it is.
There it is.
All right. Well, thank you for having me up first. Honored to be the first one in the series. What I want to talk about is a range of stuff, including wellness, but also on sustainability and resilient design, which is kind of a newer concept. I want to start, though, by just talking about what architecture really is about. So if we look at this historic building, it's 250-year-old, very simple building, but there's a lot of thought that went into this. So we see that there's small windows on the front. Windows were very expensive back then. We see real shutters that actually move, not like the ones you get at Home Depot. So those control the light and ventilation.
Sorry, Nate, quickly, can you just hit the next slide? We still see, yep, there you go. Great, thank you.
Let's hope that doesn't stick around like that. Can you see this like this now, the house?
Yep, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay. And there's a small front door, but we notice that the roof is asymmetrical, and that's because the wind would be coming out of the north and it would make an eddy over the front door so you wouldn't get cold air in. We've got a chimney that goes all the way through the house, lots of chimneys to keep the house warm. And the kitchen was in the back right corner on the first floor where the coldest room was, and it provided heat. I'm hearing some noise from somewhere, I'm not quite sure where. So a lot of thought goes into something like this, even though it's a simple house. All the materials came from probably 10 miles away, which was very different than it is now. So sustainable, local, all very highly tuned, even though it's very simple. And can you see this slide that I changed? Hopefully you can. This is from the IPCC report from 2018, talking about climate change.
Sorry, Nate, we can't see the slide.
Wow.
Oh, there, we can see it now.
It'll just take a second to run.
Yeah, it might just take a second. It's okay, we can see it now. It says IPCC 2018 report.
Do you see all the slides on the left?
Yep, we do.
Well, we'll just go this route. This is fine.
Sounds good.
So you're seeing the slide about global warming. If you have not read this report and you're at all interested, I would read the executive summary on this. It is pretty stark. We have got to do some things very quickly, and that has to do primarily with buildings, with transportation, with industry, but a lot of it is with buildings. And so we look at this slide, and this one shows where we've been in the past with CO2 levels and now where we're rocketing up to. And if you look on the left, you can see the parts per million. And there's a group called 350.org. We were trying to stop this at 350 parts per million, and we're up well over 420 now. I'm going to just try this one more time because there's slides that I need to have overlapping, and I apologize about this, but we have got to get this figured out. So you can see the CO2 slide, right?
Yes, we can see the CO2 slide.
And now do you see the new one on buildings are the primary emitter of CO2 or not?
No. No.
All right, I'm gonna break off of that real quick. And that is, let's just see here. Well, we'll wing it. We'll just do it. Okay, so the next one I want to talk about is the design trends. In 2016, the AIA interviewed 500 architects and asked them what they thought was coming in the next decade. And it was not granite countertops or hot tubs or screen porches or anything like that. It was energy efficiency, which is about sustainability. It was about resilient design, which is resilience, obviously, healthy building materials, aging in place, and smart home automation, which actually takes care of all of those. And we look at third-party rating systems, and it's really important to have third-party rating systems because it's all fun to say you have a sustainable green home, but you really need to prove it. And so there's the WELL standard on the upper left, which is all about health. Energy Star, which is about sustainability. Passive House, which is really intense about sustainability and health. It's really a performance-based certification. LEED, which does everything, sustainability, resilience, and health. Probably the most familiar one. Zero Energy Ready Homes, which is about sustainability and resilience. That's about having a house that's ready to be net zero. And the Living Building Challenge, which is really kind of the King Kong of all of them. That one deals with sustainability, resilience, and health. So what is sustainable design? Sustainable design is basically trying to reduce consumption of non-renewable resources, minimizing waste, and creating a healthy, productive environment. I really like this graphic here. We can think of green as kind of just being less bad, but sustainable is where we're starting to be beneficial to the environment, and restorative being the ultimate goal, where we're not only minimizing our impact, but actually improving the environment as we go. As was mentioned, was the immediate past national co-chairman of the AIA's 2030 commitment. And what that tries to do is get buildings to be currently 80% better than a 2003 equivalent baseline. And in 2025 will be 90% better, and then carbon neutral by 2030. So this is a big, tricky program. It's challenging. It's a commitment, just like it says. And every 5 years, it's getting really more focused, more difficult. But this is not a certification program. This is a reporting tool and a design tool as well. So we are actively working on getting more and more firms engaged in this. And so one of the key things is to get away from fossil fuels. And why would we want to do that? Well, if you look at this chart, it shows the carbon footprint for all these different types of energy sources. So the ones in dark blue are the renewables. And then we get to things like natural gas, oil, and coal. Coal is being phased out slowly but surely. Oil really isn't used too much for energy, for electrical production. Natural gas is, and natural gas is touted as the cleaner fuel, and in their ads they sometimes say the cleanest fuel. Well, if coal's on its way out and oil really isn't used, natural gas is by far the dirtiest fuel. And we see these other ones that we really want to transition to, the primary ones being wind and solar. And then we can see techniques of how to do this. So this is how we would do a sustainable project. On the left is the beginning house, and you can see the red is heating and the dark blue is cooling, and there's lighting and hot water and appliances. And we want to start with design measures and then with insulation and tightening the house with infiltration, high performance glazing, etc. Then we start looking at energy efficient appliances and lighting and efficient water sources. And then we move to really efficient mechanical systems. So we get this down to the right-hand side, this little tiny area of energy, and then we can offset it with solar, let's say on site. You do not just take the building on the left and put solar panels on it. That is not the way to do this. You want to reduce everything you possibly can and then add renewables to that mix. This is an image of a sustainable and resilient designed home. And it's got things like the Internet of all things, connecting the appliances to the internet. So maybe it's looking for the time of day where it's the least amount of carbon on the grid, or the least cost, or the combination of both. We have very energy efficient lighting. You're seeing solar panels on the roof. There's a monitoring that's visible throughout the house and on your phone, smart meters, backup power, etc. So Lots of things very different than a house even 10 years ago, but certainly from a lot longer ago than that. And so how do we do this? So the appliances need to be all electric. There's 4 general appliances that typically aren't electric. The water heater and the dryer are 2 of them. And here we're being shown a heat pump hybrid water heater, and same thing with the dryer. What the water heater does is it takes heat out of the house and puts it into the water heater and exhausts cold air. That cold air can either go directly outside, or you could use it, like if you have a wine cellar, you can use that cold air to go into there. Or what we sometimes do, we put the mechanical room next to the whole house smart home equipment, which generates tons of heat. So we cool that down and we take the heat out and use it for the hot water. And then the other area that we might see is with the appliances. I'm showing 2 GE Monogram units here. One is the induction cooktop, which is really clean and really great. A lot of the top chefs use this. Much more precise heating and cooking with that. And then I'm also showing a certain refrigerator that GE Monogram has, which was the first one that has no hydrofluorocarbons, which is really the way to go. That protects the ozone layer. So pretty impressive stuff from that standpoint. And then we get to the last part, which is the heating system, the HVAC system. And so what we look at is air source or ground source heat pumps. The air source is what's commonly called mini splits, and the ground source is geothermal systems. And you can see on the right, that's the condenser that you would typically see with one of those air source heat pumps. And they're ducted. We use them in, you're going to see examples of homes where we've used them, and you cannot tell the difference. You can't tell the difference in performance or in the way the grills look. There are systems, air source heat pumps that look, that are wall mounted, that might not be the most attractive. So we like to do it this ducted system format. And then there's smart thermostats, of course, that control this. Another thing that really helps with sustainability is the insulation and wall systems. So what we like to do is put the insulation on the exterior. That is, you can see it here. It's 2 inches of rigid insulation on the outside. We use a low global warming potential insulation, and then we put furring strips on it. And then you can see on the right, the furring strips then set up the siding that goes on there. This siding is made from fly ash, which is the waste from coal. So I find that rather ironic, but it's a really great, very stable siding, really nice to work with. And now I'm going to show you an example of what we call embodied carbon. So the reason we would want to renovate instead of build new is there's a lot of energy and carbon that went into building a house. So this is a house that we renovated just recently in Lake Bluff, and I'm going to show you what it looked like originally. That was the very pedestrian looking home that we started with. And then this is the interior. That was the view out the front, which was pretty ghastly. And then we've got the kitchen here of what was existing, and then this is what we turned that into. So pretty good transformation, I think, and also the fact that it's way better living, much more comfortable, healthier interior. This is a note that I got a while ago. We had done a house for this guy's brother, and we had done his office and done them both very sustainably. And the letter said, "Nate, please understand we are not interested in any green elements for the project. We want to have a really beautiful addition." As if this was mutually exclusive. I just find this unbelievable that people think this way. We, of course, snuck all sorts of stuff into his house. You can't unlearn what you know, and what you know is the right thing. So he did get some of it, but not one of our stellar projects. But I think the reason he thinks that way is we see something like this, which was a house from the 1970s, just horrifyingly bad design, but I'm sure it worked really well. Not something I would ever want to be being around. So now I'm going to move on to resilient design. Resilient design basically is the ability of a house or a community to recover from natural or man-made disasters and recover quickly from that. So we've seen floods and high winds and fires and intense rains, and all these things are very obvious, signs of climate change. And we do need to build to be ready for that. So building business as usual is not going to work. We really need to focus on changing that. I am going to show this first. So this is one of the things with resilient design is integrating solar and battery backup. So after all the time everyone spent after the pandemic hit and we were like freaking out going to the grocery store and we got everything in the refrigerator and it's just crammed like that. Now the scariest thing in the world would be to have the power go out. So we want to make sure that doesn't happen. And we would do that with solar panels and battery backup like this is showing. On the top is a home that we did on a 5-lot site in Chicago. It's not only got a resilient design, their son has type 1 diabetes, so there was a lot about health and wellness in that home, and obviously sustainable design. On the bottom left, this is not a project we did, but I just love these for outdoor decks, for covered areas, to have this building integrated photovoltaic system. It just gives really nice filtered light and yet generates power. So that's really a great solution. And then some other things that you see is how to detail for resilient design for climate change. So in the basements, this is from FEMA on the left, you design so that it takes water on and you get a little higher than the maximum level that you think the water's coming in. You make it so you could take that all apart and clean it up and reuse it. And you make sure your outlets are well above that. A lot of different techniques and thoughts that go into that. And then there's this other standard called Fortified, and they talk about, how to detail roofing, roof overhangs, framing, windows, garages, all that stuff to handle storms. So that's a really good thing. So before I get into talking about healthy design, I was wondering if there's any questions that have come in yet.
Thank you, Nate. Yes, we have a couple of questions. So first, are there any other places in the world that do really well with sustainable building that you draw inspiration from?
Well, that's a great question. So I love looking at the past of things prior to World War II, I would say, when building design had to deal with all of this because there wasn't abundant low-cost energy. So I look at different climates throughout the world. We were trained that in school, actually, how to look at how things were done in Asia, in Europe, different, up north, down south, in Africa. I think currently you can look at Europe. I think Europe is doing an amazing job of really educating the people there about, their carbon footprint. Like they are all about that. They understand what kind of budget they have for carbon every day for their food, for their transportation, for clothing. It's really amazing to see how that society has done that. So I think the EU is probably really good on that. And I would say that's probably the best one that I can think of. And in particular, you look at places like certain areas in Scandinavia are really doing an amazing job where they're getting to be net zero in a lot of things. And they have a very, when they set a goal, they really are strict about it.
Yes.
I think here you see people, or I should say companies, say something, and I'm curious to see how they're going to do it. But I think in Europe, they're more committed to it.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for that answer. So inspiring. And then we have, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay. We have one more. Actually two more. One from Richard Fleming, who's also an architect. He says, hello from California. I love this conversation regarding public versus private places. Are we seeing trends or taking into account any changes to work or schooling in homes and the global shift of the abandonment of public spaces, basically?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a real gut check on a lot of that since, since March, I'd say. I'm going to talk a little bit about home offices. And so that's been really an amazing difference. But as far as, assuming everything gets back to some semblance of normalcy, you do see certain building types really doing really amazing job of sustainability. And some of those are like higher education in general. So they're getting funding and they need to perform. And they have very high standards. So in the 2030 commitment, we get results by building type. And we see all these charts based on building type. So some of them are very difficult. Wherever you have a lot of equipment in a building, so that would be medical in particular, and fast food, restaurant in general, but fast food in particular, those are incredibly difficult to make more sustainable. And believe it or not, places like McDonald's are really doing a good job with being sustainable. And I think each of these companies starts pushing each other. There's a great website called Sustainable Brands that kind of tracks the Fortune 500 and all these sustainable coordinators and how they're doing. So you might want to look at that.
Yeah, I'll definitely share that website in the chat for everybody. Thank you. And then lastly, you mentioned the induction cooktop as well as the integrated convertible drawer refrigerator. But how, as a consumer, how would we know what to look for when it comes to energy efficient appliances?
So I would look for the Energy Star ratings. I think
Okay.
those are kind of the gold standard. And so you should look very carefully at what they are comparing them to. So there's a very simple tag that they have, and I'm sure that's in your showroom, that shows what the typical unit is versus what this one is. And then you can get a sense of how good they are. Not sure where else you could find info, but I would say the basic thought is to be all electric and as little energy as possible and still have a great appliance. So that's what you want to look for.
Great, Nate. Thank you so much.
All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about healthy design, or you could say wellness, and that improves human well-being and health through the built environment. The WELL standard is the way to go. I'm just starting my certification. This is going to be pretty intense. It is not a given just because I know certain stuff about it. It's a very detailed exam. But basically, there's 7 different parts that they go over, and I added one at the end. I added the pink one, design. But air, water, nourishment, light, fitness, comfort, and mind are the basic tenets of that. And I'm not going to go into all the detail on those. There's a lot, but it is really interesting to see how these impact you. And there's a lot of great metrics that they have that the WELL standard provides. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this. So the first one I want to mention is about air. And when we do a really tight home, then you're limiting the air that's coming in. That's the way it becomes really efficient. Well, you need a way to bring in stale air and exhaust out, bring in fresh air and exhaust out stale air. So that's what an air-to-air heat exchanger does, and that little diagram shows that. And if you look really close, you can see these filters. So these are the filters that you would put on there. So it's filtering the air and plus bringing in, again, fresh air into the house and getting rid of bad air. And the filters, there's 2 of them shown here. One is a MERV 7 and then a MERV 13. The higher the number, the better the filtration. However, I would warn that caution that the higher the number, the lower the airflow. So more energy is used to push air through these filters. So you really want to think about what level you need. That pesky COVID-19 is 1 micron. So that's going to be into the MERV 13 zone, not the 7, not the 10. So if that's a concern, but it just depends on what you're looking for. But that is definitely a key thing, is you have to bring in fresh air when you do these really sustainable projects. The other thing I would just bring up again in induction cooking, the reason I'm really big on this is not only because of the energy use and how it's not gas being used, but it's also the emissions when you burn something. So when you burn with a gas cooktop, you're putting in CO2 into your home that's really tight. It's not a good idea to ever do that. So that's why we really want to see a shift to induction cooktop. And again, the top chefs are using this. This is not a downgrade in cooking. This is actually better for cooking. That's my opinion, but I think that's bearing out all over the place. The next one I want to talk about is water. And, you know, we're so used to having bottled water and everything. But you know, you could have tap water, but as long as it's filtered. And that's the key thing, is to filter it. So one of the things with the well standard is that they look at the water coming into your house. They don't have a generic filter. They have one geared for your water specifically. So I think that's really great. So you see stuff like whole house, or it could be point source filtration. So some people want all the water in their house. You don't necessarily need it for the toilet. You don't need it for outdoor landscape watering. But some people think showering is really better with that. Some people want the washing machine to have that. There's certainly thoughts about having it like that. And then the next thing I want to talk about is lighting, and in particular, circadian rhythm lighting. So instead of just picking a light, you pick, I'm going to get rid of that. So this is showing the lighting throughout the day. So in the morning, it's more orangish red. And as it moves through the day, it turns bluish in the middle of the day, and then it goes back to red. And we kind of want to have that same thing. It makes us sleep better, it makes us feel better. And so we can mimic that with, not mimic, actually replicate that. So this is showing the different Kelvin temperatures for all the lighting. And there are lights that then have a smart device that changes the light really slowly to match exactly what's going on outside. So that's something we're really excited about. It makes you feel better, sleep better, everything. So really a great thing. And then this slide is to show what the scariest job in the world is right now, which is being a doorknob salesman. I think what we're seeing now is a shift to levers and to a lot of touchless stuff. So this is just showing the lever system there. And the other thing related to that is with countertops. You know, it used to be kind of fun to have a tile countertop. Well, you couldn't have a worse countertop than a tile one with all sorts of joints and grout and everything to catch stuff. And so now we're seeing one piece, even with the sink. This one isn't showing that. This is the house that I was just at this morning. So I just took this photograph. It's not finished yet. They're about to move in. But this is a continuous counter with a touchless faucet. So that's really a smart move with everything going on. And the last thing I want to talk about before I get to some case studies are home offices. Wouldn't it be great to have a great, well-functioning home office that, you know, you don't have to have kids climbing all over you, but it can be like your sanctuary. So on the left is the one from that house I mentioned on the lake, I'm sorry, on the river, the 5 lot in Chicago. The other one, we have not done an oval office yet, but we've done an octagonal office. And this is a really fun space. But just something that's really geared towards what you're doing and is, you know, away from all the other action in the house. And I'll pause to take a question or two here.
Okay, thank you. I actually have a question myself, but you might want to save this to the end. I'm curious if there are any green myths that you would like to debunk.
There are. I think I'll wait till the end though.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so then we will just save the rest for the end. It looks like the chat is pretty quiet right now, but we'll have some for the end.
Okay, so I'm going to go into a couple different case studies. I'm going to go through these relatively quick. The first one is a sustainable project. This is actually, if you can believe it, the most sustainable home we've ever designed. This is in Lake Zurich, an all-electric home. It is 71% better than a 2003 equivalent home. That is a pretty amazing window wall. These are Sierra Pacific windows that look out over the lake there. There's cement fiberboard up here. There's that boral siding, which I had mentioned, which is made from fly ash right there. These are, and there's solar panels on the other side of the house. When you do a lake house, there's two fronts. There's the lake side and the front and the actual front. So they're very different, but they're very important to do them. This is the statistics. So our baseline, a typical home in the US in this climate, in the Midwest, it uses 49,500 BTUs per square foot per year. And the goal was to get this to 14.8. That's a 70% reduction. And we got it to 14.5, making it our 71% reduction. There's a 35 panel array on there, and that provides 32% of the home's electricity. That's the equivalent of planting about 4 acres of trees per year. And the rest of the power is coming in as 100% certified green. So it's a totally carbon-free power source. We only get about $822 a year of savings, but that's because electricity in Illinois is very inexpensive. That's not indicative of the effort that went into this. But we are offsetting 22,000 pounds of CO2, and the house is pre-wired for a battery backup system. This is the front of the house, and you can see, and that is a curved roof. That's a curved section of the house, as is the garage. It's not a distortion. But we've got that array up there, and then that's the interior on the right looking out. And we always like to have operable skylights so that we can vent the house. We can get great natural ventilation. And obviously we have phenomenal natural daylighting. You want to take advantage of this as best you can. There's ways to specify the glass so you don't get so much heat coming in. There's ways to orient the glass. There's a lot of tricks. There's a big ass fan. That's the company right there. And that provides good natural ventilation as well. Fans are really a nice source of low power cooling when the climate is right. And then this is the interior. Just a really peaceful place. A lot of reclaimed material and a lot of low carbon material in there as well. The next house I want to talk about is what we call the attainable, resilient, and sustainable home. This is in Evanston. This is the one that I was just at today. The basic idea here is that there's a meditation room on the second floor, and that's called out with this panel system. And then the garage is the same exact shape, but rotated 90 degrees, so it's kind of kicked out on the site. There's solar panels on the back side of that, that particular garage. And then it's under 2,000 square feet on the first 2 floors and a little under 1,000 in the basement, 3-bedroom, 3.5 bath. And it's going to get an Energy Star certification, the DOE Zero Net Ready certification, and the EPA Indoor Air Plus certification. So a lot of healthy stuff going on in this house. This is not real stone on the side. This is, I'll show you the actual photo. So this was just from 4 hours ago. They're just putting the grass down. It's going to be kind of tough with the heat. But that is actually cement fiberboard stone material. So we're not using real stone at all on the house. I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. You can see the solar panels on the back side there. And then also on the interior, this is the first time we're actually getting the battery backup. So it was really exciting to see that today. So it's a Generac battery system. It's set up that they can add multiple ones in there. The garage is pre-wired for electric car charging. And we use this system on the interior called Aero Barrier. And what that does is they spray an aerosol mist. You have to mask everything off in the house during construction. And it finds little teeny holes and it plugs up everything and it makes the house really tight. So this is homing in on passive house level tightness. You can see the report here, like over the minutes, 0, 20, 40, 60, 80 minutes of time, the tightness of the house is rapidly improving. And then you just say, okay, I'm done. They charge per minute. So you can just go, I'm done. That's good, right about there. So we were really impressed with that. But the one thing about this house is they decided not to go all electric. And it was really frustrating because it was only $7,000 more to do it. But here you can see the energy modeling. And this is what we ended up with. We were at 26 1,000 BTUs per square foot per year. And if they had gone all electric, it would have been down to 17. So it was really frustrating. We were so close to getting that just right. The last house I'm going to show you is for wellness. So this was an existing home that we had a client that had an illness that they had to be on one floor, so one floor living. So the existing house was really bad. The floor plan, you walked in, there was a really tight foyer airlock, and then you walked into this foyer, it was really tight, and you just couldn't see around. It was like this little rat's maze to get around. And to get into the master bedroom, you had to walk through the office, and the bathroom was crazy tight in this really strange layout. And so what we did is completely alter that, but this is the view of that airlock, and then the view looking down the front hallway. And then when you're in the family room, and this is the view to the kitchen, you could look in the kitchen, but you couldn't get there. You had to walk around in the hallway down there. So again, this was the existing floor plan, and we changed that. So we opened it all up, put this really cool curve in there. You could see it all the way through. There's a skylight in the middle. We completely changed the master bedroom, so you get this great bathroom, bedroom here with an office. The master bath is set up for handicap accessibility, although you can't really tell. A very generous walk-in closet. And then the kitchen all set up for sustainability, but also handicap accessibility, and a really amazing mudroom. So here's the pictures. This is the view from the front when you walk in now. Very different. Really, I just really love this house. And then the mudroom, this has got to be the happiest dog in the world. He's got his own little shower area here. All the tile is from reclaimed glass. Just really nice space. And then that's the new family room. We did an addition, and there's a zero threshold to get out to the deck, and then there's a ramp to go down from there. Again, with a ceiling fan, and this has got a lot of smart home integration into it as well. And then the kitchen is fully accessible. There's an area here that can be wheelchair, that they can use. The cabinets are set up so that they can remove them if they want. And then that way that you could get into the kitchen sink area. But otherwise really nice. And then the accessible bathroom. We basically threw away the ADA code book and just worked with the client. What can you reach? What can you move through? So they would sit here and use this bar to swing into this area. And then they have their own shower area. And so this is totally accessible, but doesn't look like it. And that's what I really like. And then as far as the exterior goes, that's what it looked like. And then this is what we redid it. And it's got a very simple ramp here. The very last thing I want to conclude with is a project that does all of this. So this is a project we're doing right now in Scotland. It is an eco retreat. There's going to be 4 or 5 buildings, and then an executive chef building that's also going to have kayak and bike storage. And the homes have obviously solar, they're passive solar. This is a light shelf that I learned about in school. So it was the first time we've been able to use that. There's rain chains here. And then the way it's set up is this is the living dining area. And then there's the bathroom here, and then 2 bedrooms back here. And then this is outdoor space. There's a breezeway with a manual roll down bug screen here. But there's also plantings up on the roof that you can see while you're in this space, and then a sleeping porch out here. So this is overlooking the whole complex. It's off of a loch in Scotland. I don't think the Loch Ness Monster is in that one. And then looking at the interior, you can see the light shelf here. The lights, you can see actually in this image on the right, the light shelf bounces the light and reflects it up onto the ceiling, really deep into the space. So really cool. And then we can integrate lighting into here, and you can also integrate, if they want to, remote controlled sunshades. So really cool. We're utilizing Scottish larch for the wood. And this little fire here, this is actually a steam fireplace or steam fire unit. So it's just steam coming up, and it's lit with LEDs. It makes the fire look so real. It's just crazy. If you want to, I mean, maybe we can share a link for that. There's some videos online that you just absolutely cannot believe. But that's kind of the epitome of everything, that kind of a setup in a house like this. Nice small footprint, using local materials, healthy interiors, and a beautiful space. I think it's going to be very desirable for people to want to travel there. So that concludes our presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Wow. Well, we're definitely all blown away by this work in the chat. Really, really amazing. And let's see, I got to go back to get some questions here. First one is, are there any good web resources that give you the best green building practices for your specific climate zone?
Well, I'm not paid by them, but we use the Green Building Advisor, and boy, I would use them. They're a paywall, so you have to pay to get into most of the articles, but that to me is absolutely great. There's a lot of good blogs around. There's information, you can get information from Energy Star. The Well Standard has got a lot of articles online, as does Passive House, as does the Living Building Institute. So those, you're not going to go wrong with any of those. They're really rich with information. And the good thing about, in particular, the Green Building Advisor is you can post a question, and I'm sure this is true on the Living Building site, as well as and Passive House too. Passive House is an amazing community. I think a lot of these have got people so into it, and they're happy to share. There's also a lot of good YouTube channels. Can't think of any offhand that I would recommend, but you can search around, and there's going to definitely be some good ones there. So I would dive head first into a lot of that info.
Great, that's awesome. Thank you. I've shared a couple of those links in the chat for everybody so they can check those out themselves. Next question is, if given a choice, is it better to use recycled materials or natural materials?
This is like the paper or plastic at the grocery store.
Right.
Well, I think one of the big topics now, let me back up. So this all started, at least for me, with energy efficiency. Back with the oil embargoes in the 70s, I got very interested in it. And it was all about energy, energy, energy. And all of a sudden, it started changing to climate change, about various things going on. And now we're into wellness. But I think the big thing coming is embodied carbon. So if we can reuse existing materials, that is probably a really good thing, but I wouldn't want to reuse some crappy thing that's going to outgas in your house. So if you can get reclaimed natural materials, that's going to be awesome. I think if you even think back far enough, you want to reduce your need, you want to reduce your demand. So the size of the project really wants to be as minimal as possible. And I do not think that's a bad move. I'm a big believer in quality and not quantity. I think these like super giant homes are ridiculous. That one we did on the 5 lot is definitely a big house. We did not max it out at all. It's not even close to what was being maxed out for. And we always have that discussion at the beginning. And I know I'm drifting off a little bit here, but you want to have a discussion at the beginning. What is the size of house you can live with? Do you need all this stuff in there? I mean, we have discussions sitting around the table, all the professionals, like, oh, we absolutely have to have everyone have a bathroom. I'm like, really? Who at this table had that when they were growing up? And we all came out okay, I think. So I want to have that discussion about minimizing. So that house I showed, the one in Evanston, this is not a big house. Some people think that's even too big. So I think that's a really good discussion. So I would say to reuse is actually a better choice. And then if you need to use new material, it should be natural material. But you need to think about even where that's coming from. Just because it's natural, you know, palm oil, you don't want to go that route. You don't want to get stuff from the Amazon, you know. So there's a whole logic of how to think about this.
Yeah, just think about the source, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so next question. How might interior architecture change in this COVID-19 world? Emphasis on the home office and mudroom, larger public spaces for distancing, or fewer? Would this be considered resilient design?
Well, resilient design, just to answer that aspect, is really about getting ready for, you know, like if the power goes out, you want your house, you don't want to freak out. You go, yeah, I got this. I got my generator, or I've got my better yet, your battery backup, or even better, we are working on, and it is possible now, to take your electric car that I've had 4 electric cars now, and during a power outage, you want to be able to plug that in, right? You want to plug it in and power your house off of it. I mean, that's the kind of thinking that we need to do now, totally outside the box thinking. So currently, a couple car manufacturers you can do that with, not the brand that I would like to see do it. So I'm not going to plug them, but you know, I think they're all moving in that direction. So remind me what the beginning question was. I think I drifted far.
That's okay.
Yeah. So home offices and all that. So yeah, I talked a bit about home office. I also want to mention about having a really great mudroom, so that when you bring stuff in, you've got an area to decontaminate or process or whatever you need to do, and a bulk storage to handle all this stuff that we're squirreling away. You know, again, to have a house set up that's like that, all set to go, as opposed to one that isn't, and then going through what we're going through, you're going to be just so much better off. So I think that's a really smart strategy, maybe a smart marketing strategy, but something to definitely keep in mind. You want to be able to use minimal energy and still be very comfortable. So again, a sustainable home.
Right, absolutely. Thank you. And looks like we have one more question. Shelly asks, you mentioned you are going for a WELL certification. Is there a reason you chose this over LEED?
Well, I already have a LEED.
Okay, well that's
I'll
easy.
be a LEED AE. So I'm kind of fascinated with the WELL standard. I just think that is where we're headed. I think that's a really potent area to be involved with. I think it's easy to have, well, just like what's going on now. I mean, it's at everyone's top of mind. Everything that has to do, like who knew how to handle doorknobs and stuff? Like it wasn't, no one did that. And now everyone is on board with every protocol you got to do. And I think people are much more aware of what it takes to stay healthy. And if your building can do that, if you can integrate some of that, that's all a good thing. I mean, as we all get older, that's more and more important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that. I think we all learned a lot. Again, lots of kudos in the chat. If anybody wants to ask any more questions in the chat or come off mute, please feel free. But if not, I think we have concluded our questions.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to have been your first one, and looking forward to the rest of the series.
Thank you so much for coming. We so appreciate you being our first one in the series.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And if anyone would like to attend any of the other ones, we will, like we said, do them virtually and in person. Please reach out to us. We'll be sending out the invite again, but you just email mdcchai@geappliances.com. And thank you guys so much again for your time and logging in, and let us know what we can do. Thanks for everything, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.